Hello and welcome to Quays News with me, Sophia Simoes.
And me, Zoe Toast. Coming up on today's programme.
The social campaign against sexism went viral.
What new actions are being taken to try and prevent the rise in cat thefts?
And we take a look at the new Sick Museum that's just opened in Chester.
Two retired police officers and a solicitor who were accused of corruption after the Hillsborough disaster have been acquitted. Megan Matthews is outside the Nightingale Court where the trial was held today. Megan, what can you tell us?
So I'm stood outside the Lowry Theatre, otherwise known as the Nightingale Court, where today two retired South Yorkshire police officers and the force's former solicitor have been acquitted of perverting court justice. Donald Denton, 83, Alan Foster, 74, and Peter Metcalfe, 71, were each accused of doing acts tending and intended to pervert the course of justice. But today, CPS ruled that there was no case to answer. Mr. Justice William Davis acquitted all three men, saying no case was fit for consideration by the jury. There have been a number of criminal proceedings over the years since the Hillsborough disaster in 1989. In which 96 Liverpool fans were killed. The tragedy sparked a 30-year campaign by the families of those involved to find out exactly what happened. The trial was ongoing for 4 weeks, and allegedly the men involved were involved in alteration of officers' statements. They were said to have attempted to minimise the blame of the South Yorkshire Police Force. However, the trial collapsed, which means that no one will be held criminally responsible for what happened at the FA Cup semi-final.
Thanks, Megan. A video showing examples of sexist abuse faced by female football fans was trending together with the FA Cup final last weekend. Our reporter, Sani Rajavajula, has been finding out about the wider impacts of her game too and what the group's plans are next.
It's the campaign against sexism in football that's gone viral.
It was just great. I mean, it was a bit scary at the same time because obviously when you get a lot of traction like that, then the negative comments also come out of the woodwork too. So we did have a lot of negativity around it, but the positivity just surpassed that massively. Sexism's always been in the game. And then since the lockdown and seeing how often it occurs, I kind of realised that actually we could stand up against this now and do something about it.
We've all got different ideas about what we want to do next or how we created the video, and the fact that we amassed like 1 million views in 24 hours was just beyond belief.
And it's also had an impact with female football broadcasters.
My experience has vastly changed. I mean, 10 years ago, it was horrendous, really, in comparison to what it is now. I'll never forget that on my very first game that I worked, it was the Swansea game. It was also Sergio Aguero's first game. And at half time, I was on the pitch doing some presenting, and I remember people shouting at me, "Get back in the kitchen." And that was City fans shouting that at me. That was my own fans shouting that at me. And that, really massively dented my confidence.
And women in football facing abuse online have had to deal with it in their own way.
I got so obsessed with what people were saying about me. I actually put together a Excel spreadsheet of all the good comments that I'd be given and all the bad comments. Because I actually, when I first started, thought, well, maybe the bad comments were there for a reason. And nowadays it's one of them where I really could look back and think, why was I trying to change myself for these people that don't know anything about me?
What's the next steps now for her game too?
The main aim from now on is to get as many people on board as possible, as many female fans coming forward, sharing their stories. And this is only the beginning. It's only been a week. So yeah, we've got loads of exciting things coming up, which I'm really looking forward to.
Thank you, Sani. It's so good to see such a big community coming together for such a good cause. Yeah. Despite lockdown, there's been a rise in catalytic converter thefts. Admiral Insurance reported a 44% rise in claims last year alone. With 30,000 victims in 2020, just how big is the problem and how can it be prevented? Jim Spencer has more on this story.
It's theft, but not of a car. These thieves are taking a catalytic converter. Last year there were 30,000 victims in the UK.
Although the theft of catalytic converters has been going on for a number of years now, the theft increased by 64% nationally from 2019 to 2020. Hybrid cars have a very distinct catalytic converter that contains precious metals, palladium, rhodium and platinum, which when melted down are worth more than 15 times the price of gold.
Catalytic converter theft has been going on in the US for years. Now it has taken hold here.
Offenders would turn up, sometimes they'd do in a van, they'd wear yellow high-vis jackets, and to all intents and purposes to the public, they just look like somebody repairing a car. But actually what they'll do is they'll target 5 or 6 vehicles, because they take minutes to remove the catalytic converters, and then they're off. They will then sell these catalytic converters to a middle person who will then send these to wherever they then strip and remove the precious metal.
David in Salford was one victim. Last July, thieves targeted his Lexus.
That's a lot of people, a lot of money in excess. People paying £500-600 in excess. It's driven up all these cars that have cats stolen. All the insurance on these cars is getting more expensive every time.
In 2018, we had 309 claims for catalytic converter thefts. By 2019, that had gone over to over 2,000 claims, so it obviously gone up quite considerably. Last year, it was 2,740. So it is something we've definitely seen an increase in the last couple of years.
But how can you stop the offenders? Well, one way is by using a cat lock.
With mine, what they did was jack the car up, as you can see from the video, they jacked it up, they went under, they seen the sheet on it, and then they just quickly got off because they knew they couldn't get through that.
Or you could always ask your dealer if, about fitting a tilt sensor to your car, which would basically set off an alarm if somebody tried to jack up your vehicle.
So, if you're thinking of buying a hybrid car, make sure your vehicle has all of these prevention methods and maintain neighbourhood surveillance at all times.
It's a crime that damages cars and increases insurance premiums, and like the price of rhodium, one that continues to rise. James Spencer, Quays News.
There you go, I'll be on high alert if I'm ever to buy a hybrid car. All cats must be microchipped in a new animal care plan. This is to try and prevent cat theft that's been on the rise this past year. It's a crime that often goes unnoticed, but Izzy Bushell has more.
Cats are one of the most independent animals. They're not afraid to roam pretty much anywhere. But this past year has seen a huge rise in cat theft. I want to find out the impact of this awful crime and what exactly is being done about it. Freedom of Information Act data has shown the number of cats being stolen over this past year is up by 12.3%. But why has this happened?
The prices of the cats breeds, they've gone very expensive. It can go up to £2,000. So a lot of pedigrees are targeted by thieves for breeding or for reselling if they found out they're neutered already.
Whilst the rates of cat theft and other pet theft may be extremely high, is there strict enough laws against this terrible crime?
Currently, pet theft is considered property in law under the Theft Act 1968, which means they are just our possessions. When we take it to court, it's usually tried in a magistrate's court and it's only solely on the monetary value of that animal. And as we know, pets are far much more than that to us. So we are trying to get them to realise that there should be a category in their own right and that we should that should be recognised by law.
Another form of action that is being taken is a fine of up to £500 for owners who don't get their cats microchipped, to try and prevent any more families going through the heartache that this crime can cause.
I lost my Siamese cat. I was utterly convinced that he had been taken. You know, I constantly was in tears wondering what on earth he was suffering, who he was with, whether they were looking after him, you know, what his fate was. I still carry that heartache. Microchipping for cats is coming in, so it's beginning to look a little bit more optimistic now. Hopefully in time for other people's pets. I wish it was in time for mine.
Let's hope that with this new fine put in place, more people will get their cats chipped so we can prevent this heartbreaking crime.
And Izzy joins us in the studio now with more information. Izzy, why is it so important for owners to get their cats microchipped?
So it's so important to get cats microchipped in particular because cats are so independent, they love to roam anywhere. It often goes unnoticed when they are stolen, so getting the microchip, it makes it a lot easier for vets and even animal shelters to identify the owner and identify whether they've been stolen, so it doesn't go as unnoticed as it currently is. And often people think that these cats only get stolen when they are out and about. Sadly, that isn't always the case. We had Teddy, who was stolen from his actual family's home address in Salford back at the beginning of April, so it doesn't always happen when they are out and about. It is sadly starting to happen in people's own family homes. And data from Salford Vet showed that only 8 out of 10 cats in animal shelters aren't actually microchipped. So this means that only 40% get reunited with their owners. So as I said, microchipping, without a microchip they can't get reunited with their owners, and that means a lot of cats are left without homes compared to 70% of dogs that get reunited with their owners, because dogs have to be microchipped by law. But hopefully with this new fine, it is a step in the direction to hopefully getting stricter laws when it comes to microchipping cats in particular.
And has there been any success in prosecutions over the past year?
I don't know if success is the right word, but a small amount of kind of a little bit of a step forward. So there were 441 cat thefts last year, but 13 of these cats were only taken to court. And that might seem like a small amount, but it is a small step in the right direction, because 11 prosecutions were made from those 13 cases that were taken to court. So it is a small amount, but it is a massive improvement compared to 2019, the year before, where there was 0 prosecutions. So although it is a very small amount, it is a step in the right direction to hopefully getting more cats reunited with their owners and causing less heartbreak for families whose cats get stolen.
Thank you for that, Izzy. Well, the start of 2020 looked like it was going to be a record year for cinema admissions. We've got our popcorn right here. But when the pandemic hit, they were sadly forced to close. Not a lot of popcorn for us. Now, the box office is back open again and cinemas are ready to boom once again.
On the 17th of May, cinemas finally welcome people back to the comfort of reclining seats and the big screen. And fans are eager to be here. Tom Watton is looking forward to the new Bond film, No Time to Die. Isabel down in Norfolk is excited for popcorn and any Marvel movie. And one couple is looking to get their hands on a limited card. Last year, the UK box office made 75% less than in 2019, breaking a 9-year sequence of annual revenue exceeding £1 billion. Now, with cinemas operating at reduced capacity and competition from streaming services on the rise, it may take time for the industry to bounce back financially.
We are operating with social distancing, so we've gone from being able to sell over 500 seats across the whole cinema operation to being able to sell just over 100. But I am optimistic, I am optimistic for the long-term future of cinema. Obviously, we've seen a rise in streaming services, but, it's been proven that streaming and cinema has to exist alongside each other.
On average, people in the UK only watched a film at the cinema once in 2020. Instead, 54% of all viewing was through streaming services like Netflix and Prime Video. And many film fanatics turned to the home entertainment industry to bring the cinema to their back garden.
What we do is set up a 12-foot cinema screen with the projector and the speakers, and you get to enjoy all of the joys of the cinema but at your home. We have never operated outside of lockdown. We started last July, and from then we've just got busier and busier. So hopefully that will continue once the lockdown is finished.
Even though all cinemas were given the green light to reopen, some independent owners remained shut, like the Savoy in Stockport and the Rex in Wilmslow. But what is it about the big screen that makes the movie experience special?
I think of something like Avengers Endgame, which came out a few years ago. The feeling as we in that theatre, as we watched Captain America pick up Thor's hammer and throw his shield at Thanos, that's something that felt so special. Everyone was cheering, everyone was clapping. I've never really felt something like that. There's an energy when you're with other people. There's a magic that comes through when you're sat in an auditorium.
And if you're crazy for cinema like we are, then we want to hear what you're most looking forward to when going back to the big screen. Send us your tweets at Quays News. And now for your headlines of the day with Victor.
The Prime Minister's former chief advisor, Dominic Cummings, appeared in a committee testimony today around the mishandling of the pandemic. Among his statements, Cummings described Secretary for Health Matt Hancock as a liar that should have been fired 15 or 20 times.
In February, the Prime Minister regarded this as just a scare story. He described it as the new swine flu.
3 people were arrested over a cable car crash in Italy that left 14 people dead and a 5-year-old child in critical condition. The cable car serviced visitors of the Motoran mountain in northern Italy. Witnesses say the cable car tumbled 2 or 3 times before coming to a stop. Investigators say the safety brake mechanism has been disabled and that the 3 members of the operating company were aware of that. 3 people have been arrested in connection to a deadly stabbing of a teenager in Corby last Tuesday. 16-year-old Ryan Pennycook died from his wounds at the scene where he was attacked. No suspects have been named yet, as the police are expected to release more details on the incident in the upcoming days. Now back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Victor. New COVID variants are putting pressure on the NHS once again. Now, healthcare professionals are exploring how patients can look after their own health and well-being. Tara Bartle reports.
Inhale, reaching up and back.
I think what the pandemic has shown is the real need for practices which encourage us to find ease in the present moment.
The way I treated myself in lockdown was we just got an allotment at the start and I spent pretty much every day on there and it was fantastic.
Just activities now being actively recommended by the NHS as social prescribing. The practice of referring patients to social instead of or as well as more conventional medicine. According to NHS Confederation, before the pandemic, 1 in 5 GP appointments were for conditions that could be treated by social rather than medical prescription. Recent data from the Office for National Statistics show that 86% of women and 74% of men reported feeling lonely at the end of January 2021. And now, 37 social prescribing projects have begun in locations across England with the help of a £1.8 million fund. One of these is Rochdale.
Especially, as really kind of seen the impact of COVID. We've, consistently had, high numbers up until more recently.
A nature-based project by Petra's community charity is one of 5 in Greater Manchester. The aim is to improve mental health. It provides opportunities including nature activity kits, cycling, walks and outdoor exercise.
It's also gone more into people's awareness about the impact of these kind of activities on mental health, especially things around green care and accessing the natural environment. How many people turn to gardening on lockdown, because it's genuinely good for you and you can feel it when you're doing it.
Connecting patients to community and different services for practical and emotional support is paired with traditional medicine under the social prescribing approach.
It's definitely empowered patients, it's empowered ourselves to understand what else can we do to support our patients, as we're seeing probably less patients now. And I think it also links into the NHS long-term plan, where there is a big drive around prevention, and social prescribing is absolutely clear. If you get the medicines plus the social correct, or social prescribing correct, actually that will lead to better clinical outcomes for patients.
And the recent boom in food snaps on picture sharing media feeds into the idea of social prescription. Taking pride in preparing fresh and healthy food is better for mental and physical health.
Baking and cooking over the last 9 months has provided me with much needed escape from work and the constant news updates, and it has provided me with something positive to look forward to. and a feeling of accomplishment afterwards, even when I may not have had the best of days mentally.
And I certainly see, kind of moving forward over the next 5 to 10 years, more of the social side even being prescribed for patients.
Self-isolation, shielding and social distancing have created challenges in supporting the most vulnerable. Depression and loneliness are never far away. Engaging with nature might have been an unintended consequence of the pandemic, and it may just prove to be the perfect prescription. Satara Bartle, Quays News.
Thank you, Satara. Now for some sports. Manchester United will be going for glory tonight in the Europa League final, and James Spencer, our reporter, is here to tell us more. So James, what kind of COVID travel restrictions have Manchester United fans had to face?
So both teams, United and Villarreal, have been allocated 2,000 fans each. The Polish government has allowed travelling fans to be exempt from quarantine. A coronavirus test upon arrival is not required, and having the vaccine is not a requirement either. However, there are complications for fans on their return to the UK. They will need to do a PCR test and test negative. Manchester City owner Sheikh Mansour offered to pay for fans' travel expenses for the Champions League final in Portugal. So United responded by subsidising £200 towards fans' travel as a gesture of goodwill.
And will Harry Maguire be past fit?
The defender is still on crutches after suffering an ankle ligament injury against Aston Villa a fortnight ago, although he has travelled the rest of the squad to Poland. Interestingly enough, there seems to be a rift between England and United over Maguire's injury. England boss Gareth Southgate has named him in his provisional 33-man squad for the Euros, but the England boss believes he has been kept in the dark over the extent of the injury.
And what are United's chances going into this final?
So United's form has been patchy. They won only twice in their last 6 Premier League matches, suffering defeats to both Leicester City and Liverpool at home. However, Sunday's win against Wolves meant that United are only the 4th team to stay unbeaten away across an entire season, and the first team since Arsenal's Invincibles in 2004. United have big match players available in Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba and last summer's addition Edison Cavani. They can also draw on this past experience, having won the competition in 2017 under Jose Mourinho. So they are heavy favourites, but Villarreal can cause problems. They finished 7th last year this season in La Liga under former Arsenal coach Unai Emery, who has won the competition 3 times. So it may not be quite so easy for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But Sir Alex Ferguson has travelled with the team, so his support and presence may prove crucial.
Amazing, thank you for that, James. Now, how much time did you spend online watching videos last year? I can admit I've spent an embarrassingly
far too much
long time on TikTok, Instagram, watching very cringy videos. I've not made any myself yet, though. Not touched that. But yeah, the pandemic has seen more people living through their phones on apps such as TikTok and Twitch. So our reporter, Jack McKinnell, has been finding out how content creators have benefited from this and found more success.
Before I sort of found my niche and like my topic of what I wanted to make videos on, TikTok is just about making stupid sort of like relatable videos, sort of like Vine was. And it was literally a video where I made a joke about forgetting your £1 for out of uniform day in high school. It was just a stupid joke, but because it was relatable and a lot of like the younger people on TikTok found it funny, it racked up like over 1 million views quite quickly.
An 8-second clip that has more than 1 million views and nearly 200,000 likes. Rach Burt is a TikToker with more than 400,000 followers and has recently started streaming, as she believes it allows her to make a variety of content.
So a lot of people who also are on TikTok move over to Twitch, and then they can do stuff like gaming, which I'm into. You can't do any of that on TikTok. It's almost like the adult version of TikTok. TikTok is it's a child-friendly app, whereas Twitch, it's more sort of like adulty and you have a lot more creative freedom.
People have turned to these apps during the pandemic as a way of entertainment. Last year, TikTok had 800 million downloads, and this year Twitch has already tallied up more than 600 billion minutes of viewing time. Another company who has seen an increase in users is OnlyFans, who are known more for explicit content but are pushing towards a variety.
With OnlyFans, I am coming out with an art channel, so it's going to be very Bob Ross inspired. It's going to be Hollywood themed, so ideally I want to draw women who inspire me. I know that that's again one of the things that people are going to say, what is she doing with an OnlyFans? There are other types of creators on there, and here comes along this wholesome Midwestern girl who wants to just draw and be like Peter Jackson.
With more people spending time on pages like TikTok and OnlyFans during the pandemic, people are now looking to make a living from posting on these sites.
Have a good rest of the night, besties, and I will see you soon.
And we're now joined by Jack, who's going to give us the lowdown on social media. Hi, Jack. We want to know, why are people become so invested? Oh, there you are. Hello. Why have people become so invested in apps such as TikTok over the past year?
Well, a big part of this is really that there's a connection between fans and the people who are content creators. You know, the people that are making content, they know their fans, they know what they want, and they'll often engage with them. You don't really get that with actors and film producers and stuff like that. There is not really that connection where the people that watch them daily or big fans of them get to contact with them. And of course, stars like Dua Lipa making music videos through TikTok is always going to help. So there's a massive part of it that is to do with trends, but also those people that are looking to use these platforms to make their own careers and to better themselves.
So how do people turn this hobby into a full-time career? How do they lose that 9 till 5 job and, you know, make money from this?
Yeah, it's a bit of a different one. So a lot of people are just uploading to places like Twitch, and they're not really getting an audience. They're not going from it. TikTok has its creator fund that was made in March, and they've set aside about 230 million for people to earn money through views. But to actually qualify for that, you need 100,000 followers, 100,000 views on a video in the last 30 days, and you need to be in a country such as the UK or the US. Now, Rachel was actually a part of that fund, and in 3 days she made 96 pence. So it's not really applicable. She said a lot of the time that she was making money from TikTok through adverts or product partnerships, where she would be given a script or a product to talk about. Now, sites like Twitch, it is much easier to take your interest and to really make a living from it. These people will just live stream or make videos on whatever they're into, and there's going to be an audience out there because anyone can find it. So they make money through subscribers and donations. A big example, a bit more of an extreme example, is Ludwig, who in March he live streamed for every day. He made $1.4 million US, and after tax, after Twitch took their part and donations and paying other people, he made about $210 US for himself. But you can't expect to just start up and going on these sites and to make that sort of income. You've really got to find your audience. You've got to be able to connect with them and find your own little footing, and then from there you can slowly make an audience.
Wow, I never realised how many followers you need and how much attraction you need to actually start making money. That's quite a hard hobby. Thank you so much for that, Jack. Thank you.
Good to know, good to know. When it comes to information about COVID, it's hard to tell fact from fiction, but a museum in Chester aims to set the record straight. Will Jacks reports.
In the age of COVID-19, misinformation and conspiracies mirrored the global spread. The WHO Executive Director spoke in jest about a vaccine for misinformation. But how can we limit the spread? We visited the Sick to Death Museum in Chester to see their novel but visceral approach. Clinical trials mean the theories becoming the great breakthroughs of our time. This museum aims to teach children and adults alike about the magic of medicine, as well as the quackeries that we know to be false. The museum takes a no-nonsense approach in tackling the facts and falsehoods of infectious disease, while still being somewhat tasteful, as one patron described. Is a museum being playful about infectious disease insensitive or important? We asked people outside what they thought about this museum opening this week.
I would maybe say later this year would have been the ideal time, while it's still fresh in people's mind, but hopefully the risk is, for some people, are still a bit paranoid about things, aren't they?
We've lived through a pandemic, and it's once in a generation, so people are asking questions. And obviously, a lot of people have suffered, and there's been a lot of loss. but if you think about it in terms of its context of educating, and if it is, you know, maybe targeting children, then I don't think that's a bad thing.
With social media and the internet, there's a lot of good information out there, but there's also a really, it's a huge amount of misinformation out there as well. Lots of things that have been put forward as facts, which is just completely, there's no scientific basis for any of them. Initially, when we put the sign up outside, there was one person who said it was in bad taste. They said, oh, there's people dying, but at the same time, you say, well, that's been happening for quite a long time before.
A poll conducted by the BSA found that 59% of young people are concerned about the impact of COVID-19 on their future careers. It also revealed that 37% of young people are now more likely to consider a scientific career due to COVID. For scientists, the issue of misinformation is down to the lack of immediate answers. They are still learning new things about the virus every day, seeking to answer the tough questions.
What we've learned is that the original lineage, the one that came out of China, wasn't all that great. And so it's been evolving, mutating, if you will, over time to figure out how to do this better. Now, we know that the B117, really good. I mean, like 2 times more, it just takes over. But are the other ones that we're seeing, like the P1, the 617, the 351, are they any better? Well, we're starting to learn a little bit more.
Despite the current bleak landscape of misinformation, the future of medicine is looking bright. Thanks to misinformation vaccines, such as this museum, we can learn from our mistakes and maybe even prevent the next pandemic. This is Will Jacks for Quays News.
Well, that does look sick indeed.
I see what you did there.
You see what I did there? I might take a little trip down there sometime soon, who knows?
Theatres are also finally opening up again. You're in the showbiz spotlight, aren't you, Sophia?
I am, yes I am.
When was the last time that you got to perform?
A long time ago. I want to say March 2020, which is too long to be away from the spotlight.
But you're working on something at the moment now. Watch this space.
I am, yes. That's Blue Stocking. Stay tuned. Just kidding.
Well, our reporter Anna-Marie Morris has been to the Waterside Arts in Manchester to find out what they have planned for theatres reopening.
Further easing of COVID-19 restrictions on the 17th of May allowed theatres, concert halls and other cultural venues to reopen. I visited Waterside Arts in Sale, Trafford, to find out more about going back to live performances.
Great to be back to live performances.
Oh yeah, really great.
It's felt too weird without it.
It's been a very weird year working in a theatre without any actual theatre going on, so it's really cool that it's back and happening again.
Yeah, the people are definitely happy to come back as well and quite willing to do everything.
There's been a lot of excitement
just
from
to be back.
people coming back in and getting back into the theatre. So.
I just love how all the artists have managed to adapt their material or their performances for things like the social distancing guidelines and everything like that. I think it's fantastic that they can still bring that despite not having the show that they would normally have.
Many performers have adapted their craft to a virtual medium and have used their bedrooms, kitchens, dining rooms and even garages as their stage. As he arrived for his first performance in over a year, I spoke to Jason Andrew.
Definitely nice to be back or nervous?
Very nice.
Is there some nervousness?
Oh my god, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. The beauty about everything being on Zoom or being everything on film, you can edit it if it's not right, but now I've got to make sure everything's right.
Though virtual performances have been a lifeline for many, audiences are eager to get back in front of the stage.
Nice to see the stand-up comedy show, which was absolutely brilliant. Really enjoyed it. And I think the headline was Paul Sinha, who I think people would know as one of the chasers on The Chase. But yeah, it's just a really lovely evening to be together with people in a space watching something live. Well, it was a lovely experience.
What have you missed the most as a performer and an artist this year?
I think it's just that connection, and I think it's the energy that you feel in a room when you're actually all together. And I think you can connect with people over the internet and on a screen, but there's just something about being in a space with other people. And I felt last night, just as a member of the audience, just laughing with other people was just brilliant. Even though we were kind of sitting 2 seats apart from each other, just being in a room with, laughing with 100 people is really different from laughing on your own at home. And it just feels brilliant to be able to do that again.
So let's take our seats and let the magic of the stage enfold us once again. This is Anne-Marie Morris, Quays News.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. The pandemic has impacted us all, but with the introduction of masks, communication has ceased for those who lip read. Anna Cooper has been finding out how we can be deaf aware.
Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we've all been kept protected using the face mask. Now, for those of you who aren't deaf or hard of hearing, you can hear me, although it covers my lips. But for lip readers, these masks have completely limited their communication and their understanding of others. Over 11 million people in the UK suffer with hearing loss, making it the UK's second most common disability. The introduction of masks sparked Simon Houghton to create the We Support Deaf Awareness campaign to help organisations understand how to engage with the deaf community.
The straw that broke the camel's back was the opticians. When I went into opticians, and they were doing, you put the thing over you and you're looking at, and they're asking questions, and she had a mask and she had a face shield on. And she was saying stuff like, is this better than that? And I'm like, I can't hear you. I have to lip read. And she was just ploughing straight on. She said, oh, yeah, there's that. And I'm like, oh. And my frustration was just slowly and surely just getting up and up and up. I said, if I have to go, now I'll experience this again, and my wife not being close by, then I'll have to do something. And what I did was I doctored my mask. So this is my mask. And what I did was I says deaf and lip read. And the person at the kind of COVID station, she took a step back, she pulled her mask down and she said, how can I help? And that's just the behaviour that I was hoping I would receive.
Simon created a training session following his experiences, so people that are deaf or hard of hearing are signposted to places that are deaf aware. His slogan is placed in their window. Over 23,000 people took the training in the first 4 weeks, many from several NHS trusts. Emma Mendes da Costa could not hear without her hearing aids and rolled out the training to Sussex Community NHS Foundation Trust.
Simon's training couldn't have come at a better time. The serious social and mental health implications for anyone with hearing loss in this country have been major over the last year or so. Some of the most damaging situations when I'm out is if I don't move out the way if somebody is behind me and they've been saying something. They'll sometimes physically move me, which causes a great deal of anxiety, to be honest. Even more so at the moment because I'm pregnant.
University Hospitals Dorset have also rolled out the training. Elaine Golding is deaf and struggled like Emma and Simon with the introduction of masks.
It was very lonely, I can tell you. I was at home anyway, but I suddenly found then I couldn't go to a shop without my husband because I couldn't communicate with anyone. It actually made me more withdrawn and I stopped going out completely.
I got to have a go at some of Simon's training myself.
The most important thing you're going to learn is, and then I go on mute. You didn't hear anything there, did you? So I deliberately muted the screen. So I do that at the beginning of the presentation, and people say, well, I was getting a bit frustrated because I didn't know what was going on. I was wondering if there was a technical problem. I was a bit stressed because I couldn't hear and it was quite important. I was, and all these kind of behavioural, feeling stressed about stuff. And I said, that's what it's like to be deaf.
But for Simon and the other 11 million people who suffer with hearing loss in the UK, as we try to phase back to a maskless life, progress still needs to be made.
The pandemic's taught us lots of things. It's taught us that there are barriers in society to many things. And it's highlighted it, but it is how we kind of move that forward now. We don't want to go back. We don't want to say, okay, if we don't have to wear masks, okay, we don't need to bother anymore, because actually those issues are still there.
And that's all that we have time for today. Thank you so much for joining us here on Quays News.
See you soon.
Goodbye.